And I'm here to present my method or tool that I call as a visual score, and what I'm constantly using when prepping my films to observe and master the relationship between stories, dramaturgy, and visual dramaturgy. During this presentation, I will speak about the score and some major aspects around it. I will also introduce myself pretty soon. And the background to that, what I'm here, is that last summer I invited Philip Ross, whom we've been making a lot of cooperation, and I invited him to participate to our university's international summer school as a visiting teacher. I made a bodywork of this presentation, visual score or visual dramaturgy, as a study material for the students, and Philip was somewhat excited about it. And the description of this method that I use when prepping my films to build a visual dramaturgy. And about my own professional background, I have worked in Aalto University Department of Film since 2011, and from 2011 as a professor in cinematography. During that time, I have also managed to continue my career as a freelance cinematographer and concentrating mainly on long feature films and commercials and some TV series. Hold it, yeah. The presentation for the summer school was aimed for students in design, gaming and film, and it was meant to give some very basic information to people who don't necessarily have any or only little experience about different aspects that are affecting the process of creating the look for the film and how to mold the visual dramaturgy. This meant that I had to recreate my presentation, and apparently this was part of the recreation, that everything failed, so that it could match somehow to this event where I have both professional filmmakers and hopefully some students as well. This is the first time I'm presenting this for the audience, and even if this is not the draft, it might not be entirely complete. There might be some repetition or whatever. And actually, I wasn't quite sure whether I was supposed to aim this for the students or to the professional filmmakers. And here we see some general topics to discuss today. And to discuss, I mean that I merely discuss here and present the whole thing. But after this, if we have time and you have an interest, we can have a short Q&A about the topic. And to be honest, I must admit that I hesitated when Philip suggested this task, since this is my very personal approach to visual dramaturgy. But after a moment, I thought that why not? Anyway, this can actually generate some discussion over the topic and may also offer an opportunity for me to get some response from other filmmakers and especially cinematographers about the method that they are using. Now, what is the visual score? To dive into the topic, I will first make a short introduction to that, and then I want to show a little background of my thoughts and discoveries about dramaturgy and how I like to modify dramaturgy in visual form. First of all, traditionally, during the prep, we use concept art, mood boards, storyboards, reference images, floor plans, different types of pre-visualizations, and etc. All these are also taught us in all film schools. And all these are very useful tools to create and control the visual look. And all these possible tools and methods, both technical and artistic, they are listed in several outstanding books that also I have been using throughout my career, and that I'm using as study materials for my students during different courses and workshops. All these create a comprehensive and very detailed source of artistic methods and technical decisions to be used in different stages of production, as we know. Even if all these references do create very impressive visual collection, there is still something missing from my point of view, and I have questions from myself. First of all, what is the tool or method I use during reading the script? And how I make notes and the breakdown of the story dramaturgy and visual dramaturgy. the big key lines like acts, points of no returns, sequences, scene, atmosphere, key shots, visions about the most effective lighting and movements, for example. How I can see both dramaturgical arches and visual impressions at the same time in one presentation so that I can watch it like a conductor is looking at the composed music work. And how I can easily play with different elements on the score and possibly reorganize them easily. And how I can foresee the film as easily as possible too. These questions has arisen because usually the references we use represent examples of visual or just details of the desired look, but they are not presented together and alongside with the film's dramaturgy. What I need in my own work, and like I said, this is a very personal approach, is a method that collects all essential information in one very simple presentation where all core visual audiovisual elements align with the story's time and dramaturgical arches. The presentation I call visual score of the film. To put it in simple, it is one presentation where I collect my vision that is based on my own experiences about the script, atmosphere, dramaturgy and emotional effects in one timeline, and it's stripped and concentrated from that's why I resembles that as a score of the music. And for me, this is my own translation from written form, from script dramaturgy to visual dramaturgy. And like I already said, I use this during reading. I let my first impressions to flow, and later I try to find explanations and reasons. Later, I also start to challenge my first visions, but even then I can use this very simple tool to have a control over my work. And here are two first pages of the score from the film Helene. And previous image was from film Midwife. Just both of these films that have been selected or were selected to Camera Image main competition, and with Helene I won the Silver Frog 2020. But the reason why I'm showing this and telling this is like to be bold on the stage, but it's like the reason is that none of this or either of these is like a visually kind of a beautiful or excellent or something like that. That's not the target. The target is somewhere else, and I will explain this at the process during this presentation. So first, my own interest and background for the method, which I have learned this creating visual score by the process of trial and error. I found this method already during the prep of my first long feature film, Frozen Land, and since then I have been using it in different forms and almost in all my projects. The focus is on pre-production and especially on the beginning of the pre-production, but I have used the same material also during filming and post-production periods. From my point of view, this method is a child tool throughout all production phases, but it is good to remember that this is just one part of the process, where most important aim is to serve the film and the story. And then I have also started to use this as a tool for my students, because this method or tool is meant to clarify the process during and after the script reading and to give some tools to visualize the story and make an artistic plan that students can use alongside the production plan. And this is the key thing here, to find the answer to the question why. So I'm questioning to myself that what kind of effect I want to achieve before starting listing tools, schedules or other technical things. So first I have to find an answer to this question. And the score is an attempt to make presentation about how I see and hear the film. And then I have some personal targets listed here. So to put the whole plan in one presentation, which I can place on the wall or on the table or wherever where I'm working on, and see it by like one glance. And second, to find these dramaturgical elements and find a visual form for them. So I kind of very carefully pick them up from the script and put them on the line, and then I have an understanding. Actually, I have to tell one example, because very far beginning of my career, we did one film with the director where we were thinking of that. How long is the film? Is the turning points and midpoint and everything, are they on the right space? And we were in the office together, and we actually act the whole film together, just two of us. And we counted the time as well, and then we noticed, okay, this doesn't work actually, because in dramaturgical wise, this is too late, the midpoint of the film. This is of course mathematical, but on the other hand, we know if we try. So that was one method, and this was one part of this process. And to remember, I just, probably while reading, you read tens or at least many script versions, and at some point you start to forget that what was there already on the beginning or in the early stage of the, and what is the difference between the shooting script. So you have it somehow on the line so that you can see it and watch it. What is the final, sort of a final script? And then again, imagine the TV series is 12 parts, each one for 1 hour. How to remember the whole drama, how it goes, and so you have to have kind of a very simple version of that dramaturgy and visualization. And then play with this dramaturgical puzzle. I have an example there a little bit later about it, but it's a sketch to create a visual experience for the audience. And that also gives an opportunity to me and other head of department members as well to easily modify the puzzle to make successors and find more effective solutions during planning period or during filming period. This also helps me to evaluate alternative possibilities in relation to the drama. And one very important thing is that this is also something how I prep to meet the director. I have made suggestions and I have an idea, sorry. I'm not sure actually that whether the director likes it or not, but anyway, I have an opinion when we start working. And then I can also test if the director agrees with my vision of the script. And why not? To stand out from other films. So this is also helping to do that, so I can think individually how to make it more personal, or it doesn't have to be personal, it can be also commercial. But anyway, so that it's where we are aiming with the film. And then when trying to express my artistic intention, which I dare to say, I have noticed how effective it is if I can pack my descriptions, for example, concerning every scene in a very simple and short form. Therefore, I use and I have encouraged my students to use a simple method to clarify their understanding about the script by asking them to give short wording, an adjective or other description about the emotional atmosphere for each act, sequence, scene, and sometimes even for a single shot. I do this by myself too, and the purpose of this is to force me to express my intention as sharp as possible and clarify what is the most important element in every scene and how I want to execute the required effect I want to achieve, an effect to mesmerize the audience. So, once more, before more accurate examples of the visual score, I think it's reasonable first to observe the concept of dramaturgy and visual dramaturgy. Like I said already earlier, this method is based on my own observations during my own career over 30 years of cinematographer. And this presentation is not based on any academic research, even though I'm working as a professor. Instead, I have had to explore this by myself, and like I said, by trial and error. And I have noticed that many professionals seem to share at least some basic thoughts or some opinions of my thoughts or some parts of them. But still, it is extremely difficult or even impossible to find any collected presentation about this topic. So I kind of had to invent it by myself. And I consider that understanding the dramaturgy and visual dramaturgy and an ability to create a visual score are in the key role when I make an attempt to interpret the relationship between the written story and visual dramaturgy. So let's observe the concept of dramaturgy. Me and the professor in production design, we are organizing every second year a master's level workshop, Dramaturgy of Light and Space in Aalto University. During that workshop, we explore the concepts of light and space and what kind of characters they can be as themselves, and what kind of a dramaturgy these can create, and how. We also tell the students to explore and make research about some specific locations and provide stories according to those experiences related to the light and space. As first task, we ask the students to define what is dramaturgy. Answers and questions we receive seems to circle around the same kind of observations year after year. And there's a collection of the ones which we always get, actually we get them always, so that the dramaturgy is everywhere. And this, I think, is very crucial, that humans tend to see dramaturgy everywhere and try to understand the universe and life in terms of dramaturgy. And this, for filmmaking, contrast creates dramaturgy and needs counterforce as an obstacle, conflict, or opposing elements. And in order to create a dramaturgy, one needs to make choices and decisions and apply and edit elements, like I said, playing with the score, for example. And well, it's affected by cultural context, but that I will just talk a little bit later as well. And then, God bless us, dramaturgy needs an audience as well. No, what is then the visual dramaturgy? Slavomir Itsiak, the famous cinematographer who has shot Krzysztof Kieslowski's film, for example, The Blue and Double Live of Veronique, he has said this during the Film Spring Workshop 2018, that visual dramaturgy, the language of storytelling in audiovisual work, creates the emotional relationship with the viewer and composing the appropriate structure of any work, be literature, theatrical, choreographic, or film. And basically, visual dramaturgy tends to use the same dramaturgical elements and structuring as written story or play. And self-clear it is that it can create visual acts, unified look, continuity, turning points, and so on. And genre as well. But one key thing is also the visual subtext. As I call it, it's a visualization of storytelling that deepens the written drama and can add layers in storytelling. It can be either in sync or in contrapuntal with the written text. An excellent example of this is we see in the film Mood for Love by Karvai Wong, 2001, where the acting is actually extremely restrained and hides characters' emotions, but the camera work can reveal both sorrow and exasperation. So as a summary from all previous, visualization is based on our understanding about written text, using the script, and our ability to translate the text to the visual story, of course, to the visual dramaturgy. And that doesn't necessarily mean one unified look, but rather a coherent entity with changes of moods when the drama evolves during the story by using visual storytelling to mesmerize the audience. And when we speak about visualization that is based on our understanding of the written text, I think that we step into the interesting zone. And that's the part where I've been wondering a lot that what actually happens during the reading. If we consider, for example, when we read a novel or book or something, we had some visions in our head and we try to remember those somehow. And that's even more important when we read the script. And but what happens and how we read? Because, for example, Darius Kondhi has said several times that he is a bad reader. He must communicate with other tools. And I have an example from my own childhood, because my big brother has told me that as a child I made a desperate attempt to explain something to him, but I always ended up to saying, let me explain that by drawing. And I have seen my youngest son doing the same thing when he tried to explain to me. He always wants to draw it and kind of visualize it. So, and as we all know, it is amazing how many totally different interpretations from a single script can arise inside the team that is struggling towards the one goal, one vision. How is this possible? Are we all just like lousy readers? Or is it just all natural that our own imagination start to wander unexpected paths during the reading, following our own imagination, expectations or interest, rather than what is really written into the script? And many filmmakers in many different sources, they are highlighting the necessity to read the script in peace and to concentrate while reading it. No shit. But this is quite simple answer and very obvious, I have to say. There have to be something more. I believe that it would be more interesting to understand what kind of tools and methods filmmakers, especially cinematographers, are using when explaining their vision, writing or drawing notes, making the breakdown of the script, whatever. And what kind of habits and methods do you use? I don't know. That's something which I really want to know from other like students and cinematographers. When you make the breakdown of the script, when do you start your work? Do you wait for the final shooting script before you start? Maybe not, because it doesn't make any sense. How often you read the script? How do you remember it? Do you refer, for example, the daily sights and scenes in the call sheet to the scenes and story that happened before and will happen after the scene that you are preparing to shoot on that very day? Do you have a solid system to follow the requirements of the drama? Are you using some kind of a simple marking system that is easy to follow on the set? And based on what kind of a material do you refer your intention about dramaturgy when things start to go to south, collapse or evolve? So there have to be sort of a system to cope, let's say like that. And here's one example of the script breakdown, how I do it. So I use different colors and just mark only like a key shots in the script. And color markings are, for example, in the scene titles, they are marking, for example, the time of the day, and the color bars on the right-hand side, they are marking for the equipment which I'm planning that I'm going to use. But then, that's about the script, but there is another script as well existing. And that's how to enter in the director's head. One of my students who just graduated, and she wrote to the thesis work that I have learned that I must work with two different scripts. One that is on paper and the one what is in the director's head. Or what about if the director is not capable to communicate with or provide any visual references? This is also where I can work with the score to communicate with the director, make justified suggestions and about the dramaturgy. And like I said, I haven't seen any presentations or any theories about this kind of using the score. So I kind of invented it for myself. And I have developed this method that is actually a presentation of cinematographer's visual decisions. How I see and feel the visual language when it emerges in my imagination. This is how I start to foresee for how the film should look, how to compose visual action sequences, scenes and individual shots. So it becomes from the cinematographer's vision to visual score. And this is an example, by the way, which we used during the grading of film Helene. So we put this, well, there we had the shots already. So we organized them in the line and just quickly check them. So each shot was just maybe 1 or 2 frames to see that how the color actually moves in the film, and how do we have only tight shots, so do we have what kind of a framing we're using and so on. So it's a sort of an example of visual score as well. And in this image, this is the very first draft of the score of film Eternal Road. And it's rough, as you see. And I kind of made this during one evening in the production office while I was waiting the director to finish his meeting. And I was sitting in the room together with the gaffer. And we started to put this timeline that how the film goes and where are the acts and where are the different scenes, turning points, how the light should go so that it starts from like a little bit brighter or I don't know. But anyway, so that there is a contrast with the lights as well. And then this is a bit more advanced version. Like I said, it's for remembering and watching it in one presentation, pre-see the film. And like I said, my main benefit is that this way I can observe the whole film's timeline, the story. And once again, the big scale is crucial. If the presentation is only in my computer or in the small screen, I won't have enough room for playing it. And even more importantly, I won't get general view of all decisions. Because, yeah, okay. And in this structure, more like playing with this puzzle, so I can kind of move them around and consider, usually with the director, sometimes with the production designer, sometimes with the editor or whatever, and we can create a little bit kind of a challenge our pre-justice, if that's the right way to do it.
What is this?
There have to be a cat in the film, so there's a big image of the cat as well. So, and on the other hand, this helps me to find the balance on the edge of that sharp blade when considering how to give enough information to make the audience to follow the plot, and at the same time not to force them to follow only information instead of experiencing captivating emotions. And this comes to the thing which I said about these cultural differences, how we experience things. That when playing with the puzzle, it is important to remember that even if there are some theories about the correct structures of the visual dramaturgy, for example, how we're supposed to perceive the colors in emotional level, it's good to remember that it's characteristic for film storytelling that we can easily teach our audience. Which means that for example, color can be easily represented two totally different emotions in two different films if we manage to teach the meaning to the audience in a visual way that is related to the drama. And color is only one example, and that can be related to the sound or light or whatever. For that purpose, I have found the score to be the perfect tool, since when observing the whole film's timeline, it allows to move visual ideas so that they form a dramaturgical arches and controlled structure. And there's one practical example. While drawing this on this big line, I noticed there is two scenes actually tempting close to the beginning and the end of the film, sort of explaining the story in visual form so that I can use Helene is in the light, Einar is in the shadows. This is the example of the shots in here. And later, when the tables has turned, I can switch it around because they are possessing different type of characters, or not different type of characters, but different type of emotions. So this is very, very simple example of this playing the puzzle, but it didn't affect the light only, it affected of the shot size, tempo of the and character of the camera movement, eye line, all these kind of things. So it was expanding, this very, very simple example, it was expanding kind of in a lot of decisions. And the tools, like I mentioned already, this is one example of the script breakdown with what I'm doing. I try to always keep everything kind of simple until they get very complex. And at the middle we see there's a production designer's breakdown, which I used as a kind of, how you say, as a resource for inspiration. And then there's a director's reference image of the light for one scene. And then I think this is also very important. It's just like how I feel. It's also we can use this sort of facts, do some research. This is an example of the film Helena, where at the point when they were still writing the script, some version of it, and the actors had the rehearsals going on, we went together, all together to the National Museum, and there were the conservators were showing us that how the actual character was painting paintings. And there's a main actress, director, and the conservator, and then a production designer, and I was there as well. And actually, the way how the painter used black, she was scratching the black paint with a sharp knife. That affected of our decision how we could use the black, so it's not extremely hard. And actually, it was more or less like of course, on the production design, but also decision on the color grading, how we use the black. And then I want to say, I would say this is not off the topic. It's this modern challenge. And a short word about it. And when working, and especially when I have worked with the students, I have constantly faced situations where creative team members are using images entirely from Pinterest or Shotdeck or AI-generated images as sources of references for film's look. In a certain way, this is of course acceptable and even effective, and I use them too. But I strongly recommend to consider to use also more open sources for inspiration, like paintings, photos, drawings, sketches, abstractions, music, and pre-generated sounds. And I want to highlight the sound, because it really opens your imagination, and some strange way it also connects people to see something similar or feel something similar, which is, I can't explain it. But all these because, for example, I try to avoid to aim to do something that has already been done, already created. So I'm aiming to make room for own imagination for myself and for other team members to find something personal. And as I already said earlier, the sketches tend to generate more inspiration and input than very concrete references that are meant to give very exact work examples. But of course, both concrete and more abstract references do have their place in the film's development process, depending on the production as well. And just to mention that what I marked, like I said, that acts and colors, key shots, points of no return, main characters, arches, main reasons for atmospheres and lighting, rhythm especially, and most important, framings, maybe camera movements related to the character's movement, basically whatever elements that are in the key role to create a visual world for the film in hand. And this again is one example of very early stage of creating the score together with the director, because I started over a year before the director started for the process, and he was constantly speaking about that how we're going to manage to do the car shots. And the car shots in the entire film, they were like this small part. So I said that when we are on the scouting, and he constantly talked about it, that why don't we stop and buy some paper and pencils? When we go to hotel, we spread the sheet on top of the table and we start drawing how we see the film, the rhythm and some keyframes. And that's also revealed us that in the middle of the film we didn't know nothing. It wasn't interesting for us, but there were certain parts which were interesting for us, and we knew already that how it's going to be edited even, or successful that, and kind of frame sizes and things like that. So we collect them in this first paper. Yeah, that was the inspiration source, and the director really much liked it as well, so that because he's a very good drawer actually, and we were using the drawings, sketches, and everything throughout the whole production. So, once again, praise for the sketch. That's actually also one of these scores of the drama, the first version, which I just quickly sketched it. And then there's one image where the director tried to explain how far the ships are from the shore. And it was, she said, 50 meters. So, and I like this size. And yeah, and that's apparently like 500 meters. So there's always you can make like a little bit more concrete with these sketches very fast as well. So they are, and there's some playfulness, which I think is very important in the process as well. So even we are very kind of a strict and we do accurate plans, but if we forget this kind of a play or playfulness, we are lost. And they are, like I said, extremely fast to create. So an aspiration with the work among the score, I attend to effect to the films like narrative dramaturgy, emotional dramaturgy, and aesthetic appearance. These three things. And me, the director, and other creative team members, we are aiming to effect to the audience perception and to provoke, for example, emotional reaction, psychological reaction, and even physical reaction. And then eventually there's a result that with these plans there will be transformed into the more accurate plans, shot lists, lighting plans, etc. Since now we can understand the reasons, the entity, and not only a collection of details or nice ideas. And finally, this method will help me to get focused, and it is essential tool when creating the concrete breakdown. And to use this for what and to whom. First of all, I mentioned this already and want to highlight it. It's only part of the process, this score. Film is the final outcome and the only that matters. This means that when making and using the score as a tool, it's meant only to make the film as good as possible. And said already that the score enables to make it understandable how visual storytelling is in relation to the script and dramaturgy. And it's tool for communication, and that's one of the key aspects as well. So with the director, production designer, costume designer, gaffer, colorist, etc. And with all of them during different stages of the production. For example, with the colorist and VFX supervisor, I have used this both during the pre-production and post-production to explain my intentions. But of course the primary use is for myself. This kind of a controlled structure gives me more knowledge about the core aims of the story and creates more confidence to trust on my instincts and intuition during the filmmaking process, especially when working on the set when the work is very hectic. I'm feeling that I'm more open to react creatively and willing for new suggestions. To put it in short, I feel that I'm more in the creative mood. But there are some risks, maybe, or counter-arguments. And I must admit that I have also struggled with my own thoughts. First of all, isn't this primary a director's tool? Yes and no. What about if the director simply don't talk about or is not that interested about the visual dramaturgy? That doesn't mean that the director wouldn't be interested about the drama. And one example of that is, for example, one director who I've been working quite a lot, that he always says that we concentrate and we make the film shot by shot. And I think, oh my God, no, because we have to kind of know this visual drama and the whole entity, and always one shot is in relation to the previous and the following ones as well. So there must be some kind of a bigger vision. And well, also I have to admit that this working method is highly dependent on the cultural environment or tradition of hierarchy in each or production or each country's own filmmaking tradition, let alone speaking the director's way to work. So as a cinematographer you have to modify this according to this. And what I've been a little bit scared about, what about if I lose my intuitive momentum? If I overload my planning and make too accurate decisions, do I force myself to follow only the plan instead of being in the moment? And so will I end up too controlled work or kill the creative chaos or subconscious decision making? But like I said, I doubt, because it gives me more freedom actually when I have this in my background. And finally, I must accept that this method doesn't simply fit to all processes. or not to all directors. And because of those thoughts, I have sometimes just consciously did something else. Almost like throwing all the plans to the basket or something, and just be more aware. It's a little bit dangerous to say that more documentary-wise, but you understand what I mean, that when you can't control everything, when you have to be on the moment. And it's an interesting combination sometimes to try, but it should fit to the film then again. So it's not just only for my fun, it's because it's affecting that much to the film. And finally, the goals for this process are, once again, as a repetition, to organize the whole plan on the one visual presentation, to find and understand the dramaturgy aspects, and to remember the big entities, to make it possible to play with the dramaturgy puzzle, to make suggestions to the director, and to stand out. And like I said, this is the backbone for the whole process for me. And there's one example again. There's a front page of one, I would call it as a book, what I made for one film which we filmed. And it's 215 pages long. It's fairly accurate. Every scene, everything is structured in that book, but it's based on this visual score. And there's explanations of and references and floor plans and whatever in that book, but it wouldn't be possible without this kind of, of course it would be possible, but then it's just like a collection of interesting things instead of crucial things, from my point of view. So this is something which comes from the sketches to the bit more accurate sketches, very accurate plans, and hopefully excellent film. And the personal goals, like I said, to understand why. And there are some other reasons as well. To develop my own skills. If I must write and draw, I must think things carefully and also learn to explain my intentions better and clearer. It's like a learning process. And documentation, I recommend everybody to do that, because maybe after 20 years you want to see how you approach things and what you did and so on. And well, Finnish Film Archive is also very interested about this, because that's just part of our history, sort of. And they also create the references for future projects. And personally, this helps me to focus on the project in hand. I always tell that usually the crew has to tell that how good catering there was in the previous film and what excellent locations we have on the next film. But wait, come on, we have this film to do. We have to focus on this one and make this as great as possible. And this is part of that also helping me. And then also the crew understand when I put this book on the table that, okay, he maybe wants something. So this is the tool to create a solid background for production plans, like the previous examples of the film Autumn Prince kind of show. And this last is the very personal goal, haunting the own vision, which I kind of dare to call like a own artistic voice, which is always a challenge. And it includes a lot of hesitation and wrong decisions and kind of finding the goal and whatever. So it's an attempt not to copy. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.